Two people, same salary, same job, same city. 5 years later, one is still reaching the end of each pay period without a single dollar left, while the other already has an emergency fund, fewer debts, small investments, and above all, options. The difference was not luck, it was not inheritance, and it was not a sudden burst of inspiration at midnight. It was a system, and before you think, that is not me because I do not make enough money, listen closely. This video does not start by asking you to invest. It starts by teaching you how to stop the bleeding. Because the biggest problem most people have is not that they earn too little, it is that everything that comes in goes right back out. And in 5 years, that does not change by itself. According to the 2023 National Financial Health Survey, 45.9% of adults in Mexico almost never have money left over at the end of the month. Almost half. And that is not because everyone earns too little. It is because nobody taught them how money actually works. Nobody explained that wealth does not begin when you earn a lot. Wealth begins when your money stops disappearing. In the next few minutes, you are going to see the full 5-year map. How to go from having nothing left at the end of the month to having a system that works even when you are not doing anything extra. I am not going to promise that in 5 years you will be a millionaire, because that would be lying to you. But I will show you the brutal difference between someone who, 5 years from now, is still in the same place, and someone who, 5 years from now, already has growing net worth, and you will see exactly what one person does that the other does not. Before we get into the map, I need you to understand something that sounds simple, but very few people truly apply. Wealth is not an event. It is not the day you win the lottery. It is not the year-end bonus. It is not the business that suddenly takes off. Wealth is a sequence. It is a series of small decisions, repeated over time, that feel boring while you are doing them and only look impressive 5 years later. And the most common mistake, the one that destroys more financial futures than any economic crisis, is this. People want to skip straight to investing before they have fixed the fact that they are still paying interest on decisions they made 3 years ago. They want to put money into crypto while their credit card is charging them 60% a year. That is not building wealth. That is filling a glass that has holes in it. Imagine that glass. Water comes in from the top, fresh water, your paycheck, your salary, your income. But the glass has holes on the sides. One hole is credit card debt. Another is subscriptions you keep paying for and no longer use. Another is the takeout you order 3 times a week because you do not have time or because you are tired. Another is the emergency that shows up every 3 months and always catches you with no reserve. Another is the interest, late fees, and charges you do not even notice until they add up to $300 a month. Before we talk about how to fill that glass faster, you need to plug the holes. And that is what year 1 is for. Year 1. Stop the bleeding. The first year does not feel like wealth. It feels like discipline, and that is why almost nobody brags about it. There is no beautiful Instagram photo of closing a spreadsheet at 10 at night, but that is where everything begins. The first thing you need to do in year 1 is create a real map, not an ideal budget, not what you think you spend, a map of what truly comes in and what truly goes out. That includes your total monthly income, all your fixed expenses such as rent, utilities, phone bill, and transportation, all your variable expenses such as food, clothes, and entertainment, and all your debts with their minimum payments and interest rates. Most people do this once and get scared, because when you see everything on paper, you realize there is not one big problem. There are 50 small problems that together create one huge whole. Now you need to separate those expenses into 4 categories. The first is essentials, the things you cannot eliminate without your life falling apart, such as rent, basic food, transportation to work, and utilities. The second is negotiables, expenses you have but could reduce if you decided to, such as a phone plan that is more expensive than you need, a gym membership you use twice a month, or a streaming subscription you only watch on weekends. The third is emotional spending, purchases you make not because you need them, but because you are stressed, bored, sad, or in a good mood, like the $4 coffee every day, or the food delivery you order because you do not feel like cooking even though you have food at home. And the fourth is destructive expenses, spending that not only fails to help you, but actively pulls you down, such as paying only the minimum on your credit card or paying interest on purchases you consumed months ago. Year 1 does not ask you to eliminate everything you enjoy. It asks you to start with destructive and emotional expenses, because those two do the most damage and give you the least real benefit. Here's a number you need to remember. In Mexico, 30.5% of adults reported that in the previous month, they did not have enough money to cover their expenses without going into debt. Almost 1 in 3, and most of those people are not in that situation because they earned too little that month. They are there because during the previous months, they had no system and reached the limit with no reserve. Now, debt. If you have credit card debt, this is the most urgent thing you need to handle in year one. A credit card charging 60% a year is not a financial tool. It is a fire you are trying to put out with gasoline. Every month you only pay the minimum. What many people do not know is that you can call your credit card company directly and negotiate. You can ask for a lower interest rate. You can propose a payment plan that is realistic for you. You do not need to pay someone to do that for you. You just need to call, explain your situation, and ask what options they have to lower the rate or restructure the debt. Many times they say yes because, for them, recovering the money little by little is better than having an account that never gets paid. By the end of year one, the main character in this story stops asking how much money is missing to buy something. He starts asking how much money is missing to breathe. And that is a completely different question. Year two. Build the cushion that keeps you from going back to zero. Here comes something most people skip because it does not look glamorous. The emergency fund. Before you get into stocks, before you open an investment account, before anything that sounds like growth, you need this. An emergency fund is money saved separately from the money you use every day, created for the moment when something goes wrong. And something always goes wrong. The car breaks down. The washing machine stops working. You get sick and need to pay for a doctor's appointment. You lose your job for a month. Your child breaks something at school. There is always something. What happens if you do not have an emergency fund and that happens? You use the card, you go into debt, you pay interest, you move 3 months backward in a single day. What happens if you do have an emergency fund and that happens? Yes, it hurts. Yes, it annoys you, but it does not destroy the month. It does not destroy the year. You use the fund, rebuild it little by little, and keep moving forward. Conducef, the institution that protects financial users in Mexico, recommends having 3 to 6 months of basic expenses saved in that fund. I know that sounds like a huge amount of money when you are starting out. That is why year 2 does not start with the goal of 6 months. It starts with the goal of 1 month, then 3, then 6. 45.4% of the adult population in Mexico said they worry a lot about unexpected expenses, and 36.9% reported high financial stress. That is not a personality problem. It is a problem of not having a reserve, because when you know you have money set aside for the unexpected, your stress level actually drops. Not because problems disappear, but because you are no longer vulnerable to every problem becoming a catastrophe. One thing is critical: that fund needs to be in a separate account, not in the same account where you keep your rent money or where your paycheck lands. Separate, with a different name if possible, because if it is mixed with your spending money, you will use it. The human brain does not distinguish very well between this money is for emergencies and this money is available when both are in the same place. By the end of year 2, you have something that is worth more than it looks. Protection. Not wealth yet. Protection. And that protection is what allows year 3 to work. Year 3. Automate accumulation. Here's the secret that finance books repeat, but few explain simply. Wealth is not built with discipline. It is built with systems. Discipline runs out. Motivation comes and goes. Today you are committed to your finances. Next week you have 3 birthdays, 2 outings with friends, and a Black Friday deal that feels impossible to resist. Discipline alone does not survive that. Systems do. Automation means money moves where it needs to go before you touch it. Before you see it, before you feel like it belongs to you, before your brain starts inventing reasons to spend it. This is how it works. On the day you get paid, a percentage automatically goes to the emergency fund or toward building it if it is not complete yet. Another percentage goes to debt payments, above the minimum whenever possible. Another percentage goes to an investment account. And what is left is what you use to live for the month. It is not that you invest what is left over. It is that you invest first and live on what is left. That change in order is huge. Now let's talk about investing, because this is where many people make the most expensive mistake. Investing does not replace income. It will not make you rich overnight. What it does is amplify the money you manage to keep over time. And the reason it works has a name: compound interest. Compound interest is this: your money grows, and that growth also grows. Not only your initial money, but also what it earned last month and what it earned the month before that. Over time, the money you already accumulated starts working harder than the new money you put in. At first, you barely notice it. In the first few months, the difference is tiny. But by the 3rd, 4th, and 5th year, the line starts rising in a way it did not rise before. For it to work, you need 3 things: time, consistency, and a basic idea of where you're putting your money. You do not need to be an expert, but you do need to understand that different investment options have different levels of risk and different time horizons. Money you will need in 6 months should not be in something volatile. Money you will not touch for 10 years can handle more movement. And here is a warning I consider more important than any investment advice I could give you. If someone promises high, guaranteed returns with little or no risk, that is not an opportunity. That is a trap. The SEC, the agency that regulates financial markets in the United States, has documented that promises of high guaranteed returns with little risk are one of the classic signs of financial fraud. In Mexico, the exact same thing happens with different names, but the same mechanics. If it sounds too good to be true, it is because it is not true. By the end of year 3, you have something many adults never get to have. Money working while you sleep. Not much yet, but it is working. Year 4, increase income without increasing the mess. This is the year most people imagine first when they think about building wealth, earning more. And yes, earning more helps. But there is a huge trap in this year that makes many people get here, earn more, and end up exactly the same. It is called lifestyle inflation, and it works like this. You get a raise, pick up extra work, or your business starts making more. And almost automatically, without consciously deciding, your expenses rise at the same pace. The apartment you were renting no longer feels good enough. The car you had starts to feel outdated. Clothes, nights out, trips. Everything goes up when income goes up. And at the end of the month, you are still out of money, except now the numbers are bigger. Year 4 only works if you already have the rules from year 1, year 2, and year 3. Because if you do not have a system, more money only means more chaos at a larger scale. So how do you increase income intelligently? First, identify a skill you already have that someone else is willing to pay for. You do not need to invent anything new. Design, writing, accounting, cooking, fixing things, social media management, languages, teaching. There is something you know how to do that others do not know or do not want to learn. That has value. Second, start small. 1 extra client per month. 1 freelance project every 2 weeks. 1 extra hour of work on weekends. You do not need to transform your life overnight. You need to create an additional income source that is real and repeatable. Third, and this is the most important part of year 4, every extra dollar needs a destination before it comes in. Before the money arrives, you already know what percentage goes to the emergency fund if it is not complete yet, what percentage goes to debt, what percentage goes to investing, and what small percentage you can use to enjoy without guilt. If money arrives without a destination, the impulse of the moment chooses the destination, and the impulse of the moment almost always chooses poorly. Increasing income does not build wealth. What builds wealth is what you do with that increase before you get used to it. That window, the first 2 or 3 months after an income increase, is where it is decided whether that extra money will build net worth or simply disappear like everything that came before. Year 5. Turn stability into net worth. You made it. And what you have by the end of year 5 is not what movies show when they talk about wealth. It is not a yacht. It is not a house in Miami. It is not an account with 6 zeros. What you have by the end of year 5 is something most people in Mexico never manage to have, even if they work their whole lives. Margin, options, real freedom to make decisions. You have fewer expensive debts, or maybe none at all. You have a solid emergency fund that protects you from any unexpected event knocking you backward. You have a savings history that is now a habit, not an effort. You have consistent investment contributions that are growing over time. You have skills that generate more income than they did 5 years ago. And you have something priceless. Peace of mind to make better decisions because you are no longer making decisions from panic or scarcity. Is that being rich? It depends on how you define rich. If rich means having enough to stop living in survival mode, yes. If rich means being able to say no to a job you do not want because you have a reserve. If rich means not having to go into debt every time something goes wrong, then yes, that is real wealth. Net worth is simply the sum of what you own minus what you owe. In year 0, for many people, that number is negative. In year 5, with the system you just saw, that number is already positive and growing. When it comes to investing in year 5, the conversation is different. It is no longer just about saving. It is about diversification, not putting all your money in one place, because if that place fails, you lose everything. It is about time horizon, knowing when you will need that money so you can choose options that make sense for that timeline. It is about risk tolerance, understanding how much movement you can emotionally handle without panicking and selling at the worst possible moment. Different assets exist for different goals. Some are meant to protect, others to grow, others to generate cash flow. The key is not finding the perfect asset. It is building a mix that works for your situation, your timeline, and your level of comfort with uncertainty. And before you leave, I need you to hear this warning because it can save you from losing everything you built. Year 5 is when people become vulnerable to false promises. Now you have something to protect. Now you have money accumulated. And suddenly opportunities start appearing, promising to double your money in 3 months. Businesses that guarantee 30% per month, secret investments that only insiders know about. None of those are opportunities. They are all traps designed exactly for people who reached where you reached and do not want to lose what took them 5 years to build. You now have the full map. Now comes the moment I need you to see. Imagine 2 people, same conditions at the beginning. Both start with no extra money, with debt, with a tight paycheck, and with the same feeling that there will never be enough. In year one of them maps expenses, cuts the destructive ones, calls to negotiate debt, and starts saving whatever little amount is possible. The other waits to earn more before getting organized. In year two, one builds an emergency fund. The other is still waiting for the right moment. In year three, one automates contributions and starts investing small amounts. The other earns a little more and spends it all with no order because there is no system. In year four, one increases income and already knows where every dollar goes before receiving it. The other increases income, increases expenses, and still accumulates nothing. Year 5. The same 5 years passed for both. Time passed equally for both of them. But one has positive net worth, a solid reserve, manageable debt, and real freedom of decision. The other has the exact same problem as at the beginning, only 5 years older. The one who got far did not earn more from the start, did not get lucky, did not inherit, did not go viral, did not discover the secret rich people are hiding. They simply stop sabotaging themselves financially every month. That was it. And the question I want you to ask yourself right now is not whether you can do this. The question is, if 5 years are going to pass anyway, do you want to arrive with the same excuses or do you want to arrive with a system built? Let me be direct before closing. Real wealth is repetitive before it is impressive. The problem is that we live in a world that only shows the impressive part. The apartment, the trip, the number in the account. Nobody posts a photo of the spreadsheet where they cut expenses. Nobody brags that they negotiated their debt. Nobody makes viral content about automating $200 a month in contributions. But exactly that, is what separates someone who builds net worth from someone who is always starting from zero. The system works like this. You spend less than you earn, avoid expensive debt, save before spending, invest calmly and consistently, increase your income, and every extra dollar that comes in already has a destination before it reaches your hand. And you repeat it month after month, year after year. No glamour, no hype, real results. Save this where you keep the important things. You do not need to earn a lot to start, but you need to start before you earn a lot, because if you do not know how to manage the little you have today, the lot you may have tomorrow will only increase the size of the problem. Extra money does not fix broken habits. It only makes them more expensive. Write year 1 in the comments if today you decide to start mapping your money. I want to see how many of you are going to take this map seriously. The next video on screen shows you how to build your monthly financial plan from scratch, step by step, even if you have never made one in your life.